Hey guys, this is Leah with Scott Leroy Marketing, and in today's tip video, I wanted to talk about a Docusign question that we get quite a bit, and that is how to make your forms fillable by your client in Docusign. So if you want to allow your client to fill in the form as well as sign the form, I'm going to walk you through how you would set that up. So this might apply to a residential property disclosure, or maybe you just want to allow them to fill out one section of the listing agreement or the contract, maybe about, what personal property is conveying or whatnot, whatever you would like your client to be able to fill in. I'm going to show you how you can set up the form to allow them to fill in the form as well as sign. Now, if the form in your Docusign room is an interactive form, so it's one that you can just open and start typing on, that will allow your clients to sign that automatically once you add the recipients, but I'm going to show you how you can also add text boxes to allow them to fill that in. All right, so first things first, just please note that you would want to create your opportunity in Command first. Okay, so if you have not already started your transaction in Command, you would want to first go into Command at agent.kw.com, create your contact, create the opportunity, and then click Start Transaction from there to create this Docusign room. Okay, and I'll include a quick tip video in the description of this video on how to start a transaction in Command properly. Okay, please note if you're a KW agent, you do not want to start your transaction, your room, in Docusign directly. That needs to be started from Command for this to work properly. All right, and once you are in your Docusign room, so feel free to pause the video so you can navigate to your Docusign room and open that up. And you can go ahead and pull in any form that you need to go ahead and send out to your clients that you need to be able to fill and sign it. So I would do that by clicking Add on the top right, Docusign Forms. Okay, and that would allow me to search my Docusign Forms library or group. Okay, and depending on what you select in the first drop-down will change what you get in the second drop-down. So if I have my library selected, I'll see my board forms, my MLS forms and association forms. And if I change the first drop-down, I would then see my groups in the second drop-down, and these groups are created by your office staff. Okay, so if you don't have groups in here, there's nothing wrong with your account, that your office staff just has not set that up quite yet. But I do like searching by groups. If you would like to do that as well, you can go ahead and select that group to select the form that you want to go ahead and send out. Once you select that, we'll click Add on the bottom. If you don't have any forms in here, I'll also include the tip video on how to access your forms in Docusign and below in the description. All right, so I'll click on Add to add those to my room. Okay, and as long as they have this blue form icon, okay, that denotes that the form is an interactive form, one you can just start filling in. So if I were to click on the form, sorry, I clicked on the wrong one. If I click on the form, it'll open that up so I can start typing in that right away. Now you'll notice when you open the form, you'll see some information has auto-filled onto the form as long as you've started the transaction in Command. You'll see your client's information auto-filled, your brokerage information, your contact information, wherever that would go, and also the property details, if that was in your opportunity details or in the Docusign details, that will autofill as well. All right, so from here at this point, you could go through and type in, click on any of the fields to simply start typing. Okay, so filling out the form is pretty straightforward. You just click on any field to go ahead and fill that in. All right, and please note that on the bottom here, you will not see your client's initial fields or signature fields in Docusign at this point quite yet, so I just don't want you to feel alarmed by that. But as long as it's an interactive form, one I can just start typing in, you'll see these initial boxes and signature fields automatically display once we add the recipients. Okay, so hold tight on that. So at this point, we're simply filling out the entire form and clicking Save and Close at the top. Of course, if you're doing this with me, feel free to pause the video at any time so you can do it on your end as well. So at this point, make sure you click Save and Close if you made any changes to the form. We always want to click Save and Close first. And then we're going to go ahead and send out the form. Okay. So in Docusign, when we're sending out forms, you can do this in a couple different ways. So we need to create a new envelope. So however you typically create a new envelope, feel free. I'm going to hop on over to the Envelopes tab on the top toolbar here of my room. If you're not super familiar with what that means, okay, kind of channel snail mail here, right? Your envelope, you're grabbing an envelope. That's what you would do to send a letter out in the mail, right? So envelope section, I'll click the new option on the top right. And that started my envelope here. So first step, if this were real snail mail, I would add my document to the envelope to send that. So right here, I'm adding the document. I'll go ahead and select the first top blue button for Room Docs to go ahead and select whichever forms I'd like to send out. You can select multiple at a time if you would like to. And click Add Selected. All right, so again, channeling snail mail here. Next step, with putting this in the mail, I need to go ahead and add my recipients to the outside of the envelope. So it makes sense. I'll go ahead and click Add Recipient right here and select the top option. So anytime you click Add Recipient, I always just remember select the top option. So pre-tagged roles in this case. We want to go ahead and select from this drop-down seller 1, seller 2, whatever would apply on your form here. So if you're representing the buyer, seller, all I'm doing is I'm coming to the recipient field on the right-hand side, click the drop-down, and selecting my clients from this drop-down list. Okay, my clients automatically display on this drop-down because I created my Docusign room from command. So I added my contacts in command, created the opportunity, and started my Docusign room from there. So that is how my client's contact information pulled over to Docusign. If it's a form that you need to sign, you can go ahead and add yourself as well and click Add Selected. So that's the last required step here. So I'll go ahead and click the next option on the top right. To go ahead and pull this form into an envelope. Now, as I mentioned, a big time that you might want to use this option is for a residential property disclosure or if you have in your area, we have mineral rights, mineral oil. So there are certain forms that your clients will need to fill in, especially if it has to do with their property information. So adding those fields manually typically has to be done. However, for the residential property disclosure, if that's what you're working with right now, I've noticed depending on your board, so right, these forms are pulling from your board. So depending on your board at this point, if it's a residential property disclosure and any form for that matter, and you're seeing the fields added at this point, so any fields you see added here, your client will have access to fill out. So if I start scrolling down, I see the initial boxes, for example. So I know that my clients will be able to fill out these initial boxes. If you start scrolling and you see text fields at this point on the form, that means your client will be able to fill that out, and you don't really need to do anything further but click Send on the top right. Okay, and this does tend to depend on your board forms and how that was set up on their end. All right, so if you're not seeing the text boxes automatically here, your client would not be able to fill out the form. Okay, fill out any check boxes or any text boxes unless we manually add those from the left-hand side. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do that now to add the fields to allow your client to fill that in. Okay, so again, at this point, since it was an interactive form, that means, right, I was able to just start typing on it when I opened it. The initial boxes will automatically display as well as a signature field. So if you scroll on your form, you should see both of those items. Signature fields and initial boxes, we do not need to add those. And you'll notice that the color of the initial boxes and signature fields will correspond to the drop-down on the top left. So if you click on this drop-down, you'll see your client's names along with that associated color. So this allows you to quickly eye over the form and be able to tell, okay, yes, both clients can sign these fields. Now, in order to add, let's say, text boxes that you want the client to fill in, times that you might want to use this, if they want to fill in, what personal items are conveying, for example. All right, so let's say you wanted them to fill out this field. And of course, I'm working with a North Carolina form, so your form probably won't look like mine, but same concept here. You feel free to scroll to the part of your form where you need your client to fill that out. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'll go ahead and select the text box option on the left-hand side. All right, but first it's selected my name on the top as the agent. So first I'm going to change that to one of my clients. And when I do that, when I change it to one of my clients, I'll notice all these fields change color here. And I'll talk a little more about that. But let's go ahead and click the text box option on the left-hand side. Line that up on your form wherever you want it to sit and click to drop it. So when you do so, it's obviously a pretty small text box. Make sure you're clicked on the form so I can tell I'm clicked on the form because I see all these dots on the outside versus unclicking. Okay, so make sure you click the form and then that will allow you to click on one of those dots on the corner to expand the box to make that bigger. Okay, so these next few parts are very important. So I just want to point out the settings of the text box on the right-hand side. Okay, so on the right-hand side, this will show you the current settings of this text box. So currently, if it is a solid blue color, or a solid any color for that matter, right, that means it is a required field for your client to fill in. So if you want to make sure that your client fills that in, leave that required, okay? If this is a field that you are filling in as the agent, or if you want to make that optional for them to fill that in, you can uncheck that it's a required field on the right-hand side. And you'll notice it turns the text box clear immediately. Right? So again, if the checkbox is checked, that's required, it'll show whoever client it is assigned to, that it's required. It'll be that color solid. All right, so I'm gonna, either one here, so we can leave that it's required if you want to make sure that they have to fill it in. If you want to make sure they cannot fill it in, so if it's something that you're filling in as the agent, you could go ahead and add this text box and make it read only. And that would make it so only the agent can fill that in. So after that, there is one more really big thing you need to do. So if you want to make it so that both clients can fill in the field, for that matter, if you want to make it so both clients can see the field at all, I have noticed you have to take this extra step. So if you don't take this extra step of adding the collaboration option, only the client whose color it is would be able to see the field at all. So if you want to allow them to collaborate, we'll go ahead and scroll down slightly on the right-hand side. And again, if you're not seeing the settings panel on the right-hand side, it's because you didn't click on the text field. So just click on it and that'll pop up. And then let's scroll down to the collaboration option. And we want to check recipients can collaborate. You can also turn on the option required field for all signers. So if you want to make sure that they all fill it in, you can select that, or you can go ahead and turn that off and just make it so recipients can collaborate. Okay. So right now, if I left this, it's only required for this contact, right, this client, but they can both see it and they can both work on it. However, if I want to make it required for both of them, I would select that. If I want to make it required for neither of them, I can unselect it and it will give them just the option to fill it in, right? But Docusign would not take them to that field per se. Right, so I would, in theory, go through and do that for every field that I want to add for my clients to sign. So, or I'm sorry, to fill in. So any text fields, any check boxes that you want them to be able to fill in, you can go ahead and do that. Now, if you are just wanting one client to go through and fill this in, right? So let's say you want the wife to fill in the entire form, and then the husband will be able to sign that, but the wife is the one filling it in, right? They can collaborate together, right, and work on it. But then the husband will just sign after she's done. That's fine too. You can let them know, hey, I'm going to assign all the fields to Betty, and then John, you can sign it after. So you'll fill in the form from Betty's account and then sign from John's as well, acknowledging all that. So that's an option too that you can tell them. So then you would just assign all of those to one of those clients. So you can add all the text fields, all the check boxes assigned to that client. And again, if it is that solid color, it will require them to select that. Okay, I'll bring them down to this. Just a heads up, further note on these text boxes, you can move those around. So if you lay it in a random spot, you can then click on the field to move that around. All right, you can also delete it if you don't need it by clicking on the delete option on the very bottom. All right, and once you click send, it'll send this form via email to your clients to fill in. So this will prompt them to fill in the form and also sign it. So make sure you are checking the boxes on the bottom as well, that you have the initial boxes and signature fields. Make sure that autofills. I would always recommend clicking recipient preview on the very top right here. That will show you what the form looks like when you're viewing it as your specific clients. I always like to do this to know that I set it up correctly for them to both be able to see it. Right? This is actually how I found out that collaboration setting was necessary at all. Okay, so make sure you do that. You can click on one of your clients on the top, click start, and it will take you through signing it exactly like the client would view it. So I can make sure that the client is able to fill in all the fields I need them to fill in, and so forth. Okay, especially if you're new to Docusign, that just helps me sleep at night personally. All right, so once you do that, you can go ahead and click the X on the top right. And just one last note, you can view that from the computer, desktop, or mobile view as well on the top center. And then you can X out once you're satisfied and send. Okay, and again, that'll make DocuSign send them an email prompting them to fill and sign the form. Now, one last note to leave you with, please know that once you click send on the top right, which I'll show you, if I were to go back to my DocuSign, the documents section of my DocuSign room, right, so it takes me to the envelope section. Okay, so this is showing you anytime forms are sent out, and if you need to sign it, you can do so right from there. All right, but please know that if I come over to the documents section and I open the form that I started with, those changes, those text boxes or anything I added to the form in the envelope, right, like we were just working on, that will not show on the original copy of the form. Okay, those changes will only show on the form once your clients have both signed that. So once your clients have both signed that, okay, especially note that if you have multiple signers, the form will not come back to your document section of your room until all parties have signed or completed their action. Okay, so you'll get a notification that one party has signed, but you may not see that in your room until all parties have signed. Okay, and then once you come back here, you'll actually see a totally separate version of the form. It'll have a green signed icon, and it will show any changes you made in the envelope, as well as the signatures and initials. All right, guys, I know that was a lot, so if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out. These were actually a lot of the same skills you'll use to edit PDFs in Docusign, so I'll include that tip video as well below in the description. If you'd like to watch that next or keep that on side, you can do so. All right, let me know if you have any questions. Support@scottleroymarketing.com. Take care, guys.